Okay, I'm going to walk you guys through creating a photographic typeface for this project. Today I'll just make two letters, an A and a B, and then I'll let you finish the exercise by creating the letter C. You'll organize these on an artboard and just export them as a JPEG. So I'm going to start by creating an artboard. It can be any size you choose. I'm just going to make a 6" by 6" artboard, and then I'm going to place that JPEG image that's in the exercise from Wikimedia. And what I'll do is I'm just going to click in the upper left corner of this artboard, and that will place the upper left corner of my JPEG into that same place that I click. Okay, so you can see as I zoom out here, this JPEG is much larger than the artboard that I've created. So I'm going to resize it. So keep the JPEG selected. Let me just expand this a little bit. Keep the JPEG selected and take a look at your properties window on the right side here, and you'll see the properties width and height. So my artboard right now is 6" wide, but the JPEG is much larger. It's 43.5 inches wide. So I want to resize this down so it fits on the artboard. I'm going to just make sure that my width and height are linked together, so make sure that lock or link button is selected. And then I'm also going to take a look at my reference points here. Right now my reference point is centered on the selection. What I would like is a reference point in the upper left corner. So I'm just going to click on that upper left point, and now I know the scaling and transformations are going to happen in reference to this upper left corner. It's sort of like putting a pin down and then the scale changes in or out from that pin. Okay, so I'm just changing that reference point here. Again, that's next to your transformation options. If you have an older version of Illustrator, that would be in your controls up here, just to the left of the X, Y, W, H. Okay, so now that I've set my reference, I've made sure everything's linked. I'm going to type in 6" for my width, and that resizes that whole JPEG so it fits on my artboard. And this is pretty good for now. We can scale things up or down afterwards if it's not quite the right size. I'm going to zoom in here. I'm going to work on the letter A. Okay, so what I'll do is I'm going to make the letter A connected to this tulip in this painting. So I'll click on my artboard with my type tool, type the letter A. Mine's a little bit dark, so I'll just change the color so you guys can see this better. Just a bright color. Okay, now my letter is 113 points because I've already started working on my designs, so you may have to change the scale of your typeface. The typeface I'm going to be using is Baskerville, but you could also choose a different typeface. Caslon is nice, Bodoni's a nice typeface. Let me think, what else would be a nice typeface? You can try Times New Roman. It's not as elegant on a large scale. But you can take a look and see what kind of typefaces you have. What I'd recommend for something like this is a somewhat more traditional typeface, or at least a transitional typeface if you can. So I do like Caslon. I'll use Caslon for this one. Okay, nice looking letter. And I'm just going to scale this letter up or down. You can use your scale tool. And if you hold shift and drag diagonally, it should scale. So you can scale this up or down, but I'm going to align this with the expectation that I'll be attaching this tulip and the small pink rose to the letter form. Okay, so I just want it scaled and lined up to those forms. Okay, and then I'm going to take my pen tool and I'm going to create some closed paths. Now, it's worth noting when I start creating my paths, it will have the characteristics that have been defined from the previous object. So right now, if I start building a path, it's going to have a yellow fill and no stroke, and that's fine, and I'll show you how to turn that off or on as you build your paths. So I'm going to create a closed path for the shape of this tulip. And I'm going to be able to do this pretty quickly. You might need to take some time, so don't hesitate to pause this video. And I'm not going to worry too much about any shapes that are going to be hidden by the letter A. I'm only going to worry about creating a path around the shape outside of the letter. Okay, so I'm just going to build this up. If you need to change the direction of a handlebar to create a little point, Option or Alt if you have a PC. If you end up off the path, like what I just did, don't worry, just Command Z to continue a path after you accidentally exit off of it. Hover over an endpoint, look for that backslash next to your pen tool, just click on that point and you can continue your path. So I'm using Option to redirect at this point, and then to create any arcs, you just hold your mouse down and drag, and you'll be creating these small handlebars which help you define different arcs as you move around. Option to change direction. Just try to get these points on the inside of the form so you avoid any black outlines when you end up cutting this out. Okay, so see what just happened there? See how my fill isn't following me anymore? That means I somehow exited off of my path. So I'm going to go backwards and just, again, look for that backslash, click on that point, and now I can continue. Okay, so right now I have fill set for the path that I'm building. Excuse me. And because it's hiding some aspects, so you're going to see it's hiding one edge. If I wanted to flip my fill and stroke, I just go to my toolbar here and click on this double arrow to toggle, and it'll just move that yellow to the outline as opposed to the fill so I can see everything that I'm working on. And I'm just going to keep creating this path down the stem here into the A, and I'll follow it back and close the path. Remember, you're closing a path when you see that circle next to the pen tool. Click it one time, and the path is closed. So that's my first path. But I want to add a little more detail to the letter A, so I'm also going to create a little path around this pink rose, and I'll probably include this green leaf as well. So zooming in here, this is a new path, and again, I'm just going to work my way around. And you can take your time. You don't have to go at the same pace as me. I've done this a lot of times, so I'm a little more familiar with building really quick paths around objects. Again, just trying to keep my points on the inside of the shapes so that we don't get black outlines. I'll just go around this little pink rose. I'll include these green leaves. Maybe I'll include these too and just navigate back. Close my path. Okay, so I have two closed paths and then I have the letter A, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a single path from these three objects. Now I'm going to take my selection tool, the black arrow, and select the letter A, and then I'm going to navigate to my type menu and select create outlines. When I do that, I should see anchor points around the letter. And if I go to my layers panel and expand it, I can see that I now have a group that is the shape of my letter A. And you'll see the group because you have just outlined the letter, so it should be selected in your layer window. And you know it's selected because you'll see a colored square next to the meatball. So I'm going to expand my group just to see what's inside of it. And inside of my group is simply a compound path. Compound paths are objects that have multiple closed paths defining it. meaning it's usually a path that has cutouts in it, right? Like we're seeing with this letter A. That's when you see a compound path. So what I'll do is I'm just going to remove that compound path from the group by ungrouping. Command or Control Shift G will ungroup. You can also go to your Object menu and select Ungroup. And now all we're dealing with is a single compound path. That's what we want. So with my selection tool, I'm going to hold Shift and select my objects so I can see in my layers window I have 1, 2, 3 objects selected, 2 paths, and my compound path, which is the letter A. With those 3 paths selected, I can now use my Shape Builder tool, Shift M as your shortcut key, and I can take the Shape Builder, I'll zoom in here so you guys can see this better, and the Shape Builder highlights the shapes that you're merging together. So I'm just going to slowly build my shapes. Okay, so kind of plan ahead with which shapes you want to blend together. And I'm just going to click and drag over the shapes. And as I'm doing this, notice how you're seeing a larger and larger shaded area as you build this out. Okay, so I have this space that's the counter in the A. I'm going to leave that open. Okay, and same thing down here. I'll leave these open and I'll just merge the stem and then the shape of this rose. And I'm going to decide that I don't actually want these leaves because I really want to see this left stroke on the A. So I think if I merge it with this area here, it's going to get a little bit obscured. So I'll just keep merging these on the left side and then merge these together. Now notice what's happening here. It's not letting me merge these. And I think that's an issue with my Shape Builder tool. So I'm going to just double click my Shape Builder tool in my toolbar and take a look. Turn off gap detection. You can always turn this back on. All tool options are available if you double click the tool in the toolbar. So I'm going to deselect that for a second, say OK. And that way I can take a look at this. Okay, this is much better. And I'm going to merge these together. Okay, so this shaded area is going to be the shape of my letter. And I think that's pretty good. So I'm ignoring this shape here that I created. That's okay. You can make these decisions as you're building your letters out. Okay, and now I'm going to exit out of my Shape Builder to my Selection tool, deselect, reselect anything we want to get rid of. I'm going to just press delete to delete that. And this shape, this yellow shape, is going to be the shape of my letter. I'm not going to move anything. I'm just going to now, with my selection tool, hold Shift and select the JPEG behind it. So if I look at my layer, I can see I have my compound path selected and my image selected. My compound path needs to be above the image, which it is. And with both objects selected, what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a clipping mask. Okay, Command 7 is your shortcut key if you have a Mac. I believe that would be Control 7 if you have a PC. But you can always find this at the bottom of your object menu. So I'll make this clipping mask. And now we can see what the letter A is going to look like with those silhouettes. Okay, and that looks pretty good. So I've added these guides here to help me with my letter height. So I'm just going to take my selection tool and move this clip group down here. I'm going to press S to access my scale tool, and I'll set my scale point at the bottom here. And then just scale this up a little bit so that my letter height is the height of these guides. Press V to access that selection tool. Click outside of here so you can kind of see what this object looks like. Okay, and we have the letter A. Okay, so we can zoom in here. If you see any problems with your path, now's the time to edit. A is your shortcut key for that direct selection tool. And you can go in here and make some minor adjustments. So when I navigate in here, I can see my anchor point is not perfect. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to tidy this up a little bit so it looks more natural. And then I love using my direct selection tool to make changes to my paths. I just find it the easiest editing tool. People might choose something else, but I think it's the best way to select anchor points quickly, move anchor points, make minor adjustments to the handlebars, etc. So just go in here and do some minor edits. Remember, this one's just an exercise, but it'll kind of get you practiced and ready to kind of take over your project pretty quickly. And this is one of the easier projects as far as it's more about your ability to curate your theme and less about your ability to quote unquote design or create perfect paths, right? So what you're going to have to do for this project is come up with a theme. So I thought Dutch still life was a really easy theme for students to really comprehend, but you are going to be welcome to choose whatever theme you like. Okay, and I'm going to be making a second letter here just so we can get a little more practice in. So I'm going to place that JPEG one more time. And just like before, I'll just place it in the upper left corner of this artboard. Again, double check my reference point, make sure my width and height are linked. Type in a width of 6 inches. That will resize it. And this time I'll take my my type tool, and I'll type in the letter B, and I'll decide, just change this color so it's easier for you guys to see on screen. And what I'll do is I will choose a different flower from the still life. You guys can choose any flower you want, right? You could do the tulip or the rose. You could choose something from this large basket. It's completely up to you. I'm going to select this pretty white flower here with these yellow flowers as well. So I think that's going to look nice. And you can scale your letter up or down too. Don't feel that it has to be exactly the same size. You can scale it later so it ends up being the same size as the initial letter A. So I'm just looking at this white flower, maybe this yellow carnation that we're seeing here, and I'm going to use those for the letter B. They can come off of your letters pretty substantially. What I would caution you is don't obscure too much of the counterform, because the counterforms are really what help people see the letter or recognize it. So I'm going to press P to access my pen tool, and I'm going to create a closed path, and my closed path is going to contain this white flower. Remember, you can just kind of make a messy path wherever the letters are, covering up the flower. Okay, so I'm going to go around this white flower, and I might have to go in and edit because I can tell I'm putting my points down a little bit outside of it. And remember, arcs, you're holding your mouse down and dragging to create those handlebars. For points, you're using Option or Alt on your computer to get that Convert Point tool, and you're redirecting these handlebars to get that as close as possible. Okay, this yellow flower is going to be a little tougher because we have these brush strokes at the end of these petals, so you might have to go in and do some tidying up after you do this cutout, but that's okay. So I'm going to work my way around this flower. I might want to zoom in if that's going to make your life a little bit easier to see where some of these details are. Option to redirect for any points. And remember, it doesn't have to be perfect, but what I would suggest is that at the end you do some tidying up so you don't have little black outlines around your shapes. That's sort of a dead giveaway that it's just kind of a cutout. So as long as you kind of keep these paths on the inside of the shape, people can't tell if you've messed up the shape or not. I'm just going to work my way around here. Okay, it doesn't have to be perfect. Give yourself some time. I'm just doing this quickly so you guys can see what I'm doing. Now notice this yellow flower is going to hide the entire serif that's over here on the left side of the B. So I have to be really conscious of how much more of the shape of my letter B I'm going to be willing to hide. Because if I hide too much of it, it gets really difficult for someone to be able to recognize that letter form. So it's sort of a balance of getting interesting detail from the photographs that you choose in your themed photographs, but then also making sure enough of your letter forms are visible that the letters can still be read. Okay. Okay, I'll close that. Okay, so that's my shape for the letter B. If I wanted some more flowers, I could add to it. I think for right now that's good so that you guys can kind of see what's going on. So I'll take my selection tool, select the letter B, again navigate to my type menu and create outlines. Again, that's probably a group, and it is. If I go to my layer window, I can see this is a group that contains one compound path. So I'll simply ungroup, and then using my selection tool, I'll select the closed paths that I created. You might have created one or two. I've just created one. So I have my B compound path and my closed path. I'll take my shape builder tool, and again I'm going to merge these all together, and I remember turned off my gap detection, so I'm just merging all of these together, and this looks pretty good. So this is the shape, this yellow shape. So go to your selection tool just to exit out of your pen tool here. I want the shape, the compound path selected that I just created with my shape builder. You can delete any extra paths that you accidentally left behind. And what I'll do is keep this selected, then I'll hold shift and select the image. I only have two objects selected, a compound path and my image object. The compound path needs to be above it in your layers panel. Command 7 to create a clipping mask, which is also available from your object menu. And you have this lovely letter B. Okay, so hopefully you're starting to see this come together, right? And I left these sort of openings down here so that you could still see some of that letter form. And I probably could have added even another flower and you'd still recognize the B, but you just need to be really conscious of these counters. So be thoughtful when you're placing the letter down along the photograph before you even merge all your shapes together, and really think about whether you have enough of those cutout counters visible for some of your letters. And I'll just press A here and start editing. Okay, a couple little mistakes in here. Really just try to get rid of some of those black outlines so they're not so obvious. And that looks pretty nice. So what I'm going to ask you to do is now create the letter C so that you'll have an A, B, and C. And then you can take the three letters that you build, center them on the page, use the guides to make sure they're all the same height, and just export this artboard as a JPEG and submit it. And hopefully this will give you an idea of what a typographic letter form looks like using a photograph. So this is a photograph of a painting. You can use photographs of any objects. I'm very open. What I ask of you is that you email me to confirm your theme. I've seen letters and themes from comic book characters, Batman characters, villains, DC comic books. I've seen vintage tattoos. I've seen flowers, trees, landscapes. I would say anything like a landscape can be really difficult because the most successful um, typefaces for this project are ones that use actual forms and shapes of objects. And in landscapes, there's not really clear shapes. So I would just caution you about abstract photographs. You really want something that you can kind of find the shape, find the form, cut it out so that it becomes kind of a part of the letter. So, like I said, certain types of tattoos have been pretty interesting. I've seen pinup girls and advertisements from the 60s. I'm trying to think what else I've seen. I've seen gaming characters from computer games, and those sometimes can turn out in an interesting way. Um, Geodes and gems, that I've seen a project like that. Uh, Illustrations from the 17th and 18th century. I've seen illustrations from Harry Potter. The list goes on and on. I don't want to give you all of the themes that all of my students have chosen because I want you to choose your own. But really feel free to ask me about a theme that you have in mind, and I'll be happy to respond to you. Okay, so this is the brief exercise. Just do A, B, and C, save it as a JPEG, and submit it. And hopefully, this helps you with getting ready for that project.